thing. I sent the application off. Oh.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is Ted Hicks for Late Night Parents. Ways to follow the show, latenightparents.com. We got Danny Thompson in the queue. I don't know what we were just talking about, but we're gonna clip that part off, or we might just leave it on. Danny, how you doing?
You know what? I mean, after actually watching real basketball, say from 3:30 to about 6, I'm okay with not watching basketball from 7 until the end of the regular season tonight. I'm okay with it.
I guess you're talking about the Boston game and then the upcoming Golden State Warrior game, which I'm like,
there's 15 games on the schedule today. 4 of them mattered. When everybody else got benched starting at 7 p.m., it's time to figure out something on Netflix for tonight.
Yeah. I mean, and everything that mattered happened around the 3:30 Eastern time.
Yeah, I mean, the NBA set it so that none of the teams, Charlotte, Brooklyn, Atlanta, or Cleveland, could sit any players. They basically made everybody play as hard as they could because those are the 4 games that really meant a lot. Philadelphia realized that they're not really worried about Toronto as much as Boston would be. Milwaukee basically just sat everybody and played Drew Holiday for a grand total of 8 seconds. So it is what it is. I mean, like I said, Boston, I think, is cruising over Memphis. And so Boston, I think, will take either 2 or the 3. They'll take the 2. And Milwaukee can, I don't want to say this, but Milwaukee decided to avoid a potential first-round matchup with Brooklyn
Really?
by losing today against Cleveland.
So who, if they get out of the play-in, who are they looking at?
If Brooklyn wins on Tuesday, they'll be playing Boston in round 1.
Whoa. Without the Time Lord.
Without Robert Williams. It's the lesser of the 3 evils.
See, I've got friends at work, and I didn't want any excuses. So I didn't want Boston until the Time Lord returned.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing was, if Boston were somehow to fall, if they were lost tonight, it's with the record situation, they would have slid all the way down to 4. And then, Ted, we fight the vaccination rule if you're a Celtics fan, because as of right now, Jaylen Brown and Al Horford are unvaccinated, which means they'll be ineligible for games 3, 4, and a potential game 6 against the Raptors.
Tone, what's going on? Tone Capone is in here.
Tony.
So wait. Toronto does present a problem.
Toronto presents a problem. So the only team that didn't have to worry about the Milwaukee Bucks didn't have to worry about it. The Bucks and the Miami Heat are fully vaccinated. That's been around the league. Everybody knows they're fully vaccinated. Boston's not fully vaccinated, and neither is Philadelphia.
Right.
So as far as the first round opponents go, that was the issue.
Okay.
Philadelphia, if they're ending up in the 4th spot, will lose Matisse Thybulle for games 3, 4, and 6. So that means Pascal Siakam, if he gets anybody, would basically have a field day in those games.
He's gonna run wild.
And Siakam should be Eastern Conference Player of the Month for April. The way he's been playing for the Raptors this month. So.
Okay. Well, we'll wait and see the playing games, and then we'll see how this stuff unfolds. I really didn't not too much want to bother you tonight for NBA. Wanted to talk a little, well, before we even get started. You know, rest in peace to Dwayne Haskins.
That was a tough one. That was a rough one yesterday. I was on my show yesterday, and I think the news broke right around about 10:55, 10:57 when Adam Schefter broke the news.
And what show was that?
Passing. Huh?
What show was that?
it's sad to see somebody at 24, lose their
Right.
life. It's one of the roughest things you could possibly see. You go back to his Ohio State days, you saw all that talent at Ohio State. And I think he was starting to turn it around. In sports, when you're a draft pick, sometimes, it's really about the fit. And maybe it just didn't work in Washington. But he was given a second chance in Pittsburgh, and
Right.
Roethlisberger had retired, and he was down in South Florida working with Steelers wide receivers and running backs, and even Mitchell Trubisky. So you can tell that he was working himself. Listen, he had a chance. He had a rifle arm. The kid can play. The kid can play. He just needed the right opportunity, the right people around him. And I think that before yesterday, I think he was starting to get into Pittsburgh.
Mm.
But I mean, it's a sad
So
loss
sad.
for the NFL community, the sad loss for the Ohio State community. My heart goes
So
out to the
sad
Haskins family.
to his family. Yeah.
Like I said, it's just 24 years old. It's just like he hadn't even started life yet.
No. Not at all. Not at all.
So yeah, I saw the news where Adam Schefter broke it yesterday. So
as we segue from that, I wanted to go into transactional people, newsbreakers, the Jeff Posson, the Adam Schefter, the Ian Rappaports, the Sham Sharania, and of course Woj. And to a lesser degree, Mike Florio and Jay Glazier and those type of folks. Transactional people is more like we saw this past week. We saw ESPN double down, pay their top transactional people, Adrian Wojnarowski and Adam Schefter. I need you to help me understand. Yes, they have huge followings on Twitter, and I'm guessing other forms of social media. What else are you getting with those type of assets if you're ESPN or if you're a sports network?
I mean, when you're paying that type of money, for a guy like Woj or Shams, or like I said, now Adam Schefter on the ESPN side, I mean, you're getting the ability to have their connections, what people they know, what front offices, what players they know, to get the information, because this is I need to beat everybody else to the punch.
I need to be first.
You gotta be first. It's funny how many times you see Woj and Shams, especially during free agency, just drop a tweet, and Shams will have it 22 seconds before Woj does, and then you see Woj's his comments, his mention saying, "Oh, you're late. Oh, you're late. Shams did it first. He broke." And there's actual statistics of people saying, comparing Woj bombs to Shams bombs.
Right.
So it's like, okay, it'd be like the millisecond that somebody presses enter. They're paying for what you get from that click. Adam Schefter is the name that that is synonymous with breaking stories in the NFL. We have there's other story breakers who are just as good. I mean, you mentioned Jay Glazier, but Josina Anderson is one.
Right.
A very underrated story breaker. We mentioned Mike Florio. Josina Anderson could be in the top 3 or 4.
Right.
Story breakers. But that's another story for another conversation, another day, on why Josina Anderson is considered different than everybody else. Because to me, if I'm a sports network, okay, if Shefty's over on ESPN, which is perfectly fine, I'm going after Josina Anderson. Because if you look at her timeline of tweets, she's getting information from players. And who's the best source to get it from? You look at how media is done and how the insiders get the information. You can tell who has what relationships. I'm a big fan of Chris Haynes. Chris Haynes has a lot of relationships with players.
Right.
Is
it mainly out in the Bay Area or just across the board?
I think Chris has earned the respect not only of the people in the Bay Area, but he's earned it from every single person across the league. Because Ted, to be honest with you, if you sit down with Chris, and I've been in media rooms with him on a couple of occasions before he went TNT. So this is before he's now, in your, on the Turner side of things. But Chris had a way of talking to players
Mm-hmm.
in locker rooms that, listen, I've never seen before. I've watched Chris and I observed Chris, and I even picked up a couple of the things that he's done. If he's watching, hey, I picked up a couple of things, and that's how, in the few players I know compared to him, I was able to build relationships because I watched how he did it. Because
I
Chris is,
remember, like,
he's
it was like maybe 3 to 4 to 5 years ago. He broke a story about
Gordon Hayward.
Gordon Hayward, and I remember because it seemed like ESPN on ESPN Crime, because Woj and Chris Haynes were going back and forth, where he broke the story, and Woj chimed in, "No, this is not. This is not a done deal. The trade hasn't been executed or the contract hasn't been signed." And I like the fact that Chris Haynes, stood tall.
Yeah, because the agent wanted it to come from Players Tribune for
Right.
Gordon Hayward when we went to Boston. And guess what? Chris got the information not from the agent, he got it from somewhere else.
Mm.
And he was right. That's one of the things about being a story breaker in this business. Not only do you have to break the story first, but you have to break the story accurately.
Right.
Ted, how many times have we seen a trade happen and the person who's breaking the trade has to have 19 different tweets because, okay, player A is traded. Well, okay, well, by the time we get to player A, we find out that player B and player C is going for player A. Oh, by the way, these 3 draft picks are coming in. Oh, by the way, the compensation's 7 years down the road. And by the time we get to that, we have 9 tweets
Right.
for
But
one transaction
is
that
that
could have been
about
done in one
being
tweet.
first? Is that about just, hey, I want to get this information out, and then we'll hash everything else out?
Yeah, it's just like, okay, Ted Hicks was traded. That's the breaking story. But when, Ted, when you find out somebody's traded, what's the first thing you're asking?
Where are they going to?
And who got traded in return?
And who got traded for them?
But when you look at those tweets, a lot of times you don't have the entire trade. Like
No.
trade deadline days are the funniest tweets because you're watching Roj and Shams and Mark Stein and Chris Haynes and the best story breakers league breaking trades when the majority of them don't even have the information. Majority of them don't have the information. Sorry about that. It's funny. When Chris drops a story, it's majority of the time he has everything in there.
Okay.
But watching Woj and Shams is literally breaking a trade and then seeing like 9 other tweets about the trade because they had to update it or fix it. It's funny to me.
So tell me, what do you prefer? Do you prefer, because what I notice is Woj will break a trade, or here's the latest news on XYZ. And then I guess he has a team behind him that's putting together the actual story for him on ESPN.com. Or is he actually, or are the newsbreakers actually going into WordPress, posting the information, and then having the editor run through it and everything else? How does that work?
That's the answer. I couldn't even tell you because I don't know how that sauce works. I would love to know because it kind of the articles look similar in some cases when the story is broken. So I don't really know the answer to that question.
The other thing I marvel about it sometimes. Woj will break the story, but he'll say, "I'm reporting on this." And what was the name of the LeBron James reporter who got a job with ESPN?
Brian Windhorst.
Brian Windhorst. This is Woj, Brian Windhorst, blah blah blah, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, how many different people are on this?
I mean, that's with anything though. Anything in the ESPN family, you realize that if a story breaks, it's the writer plus Woj. At the end of the day, I mean, I guess it's confirmation. I'm not sure how it works. That's one of the reasons why I didn't get into news breaking. I'd rather talk about the trade after all the pieces are done.
After the fact.
Yeah, I like to talk about how the trade looks in all pieces. The story breaking stuff, I will leave it to Woj. I'll leave it to Chris. I'll leave it to Shams. I'll leave it to the guys getting paid the bigger bucks. I'll just write about it afterwards.
Wow. Okay. It's just, to me, it's funny because this news is being broken on Twitter, a site that we all have access to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it becomes more about the person than the organization they stand behind.
It is. I think it's, transactional. I mean, we can go back to yesterday with Dwayne Haskins passing and how the tweet was presented.
Yeah.
To the mainstream,
Sloppy.
to everybody.
Disrespectful and sloppy.
Yeah, I mean, but it's been a growing trend, over the last, 2 and a half, 2 years when it comes to tweets like that. It's not about, what the real meaning is. It's just trying to make it sound like a transaction. You see on the little daily blurb, Ted. You remember, Ted, when you read the sports page, they had one page that had all the scores, all the standings, and then little transactions in the corner.
Right.
I mean, you're trying to fit everything in 150, 140 characters or 240 characters or whatever Twitter has, but, it's not about, these are people. Athletes are people. And that's sometimes not just journalists forget that, but common people forget that these athletes are human beings like the rest of us.
It's true. It's true. This is Ted Hicks. This is on Late Night Parents. We're talking with Danny Thompson. Danny, quickly segue to new MLB season. Excited, happy, glad that, they had to go through the lockout to make the necessary changes so that the whole millionaires versus billionaires spiel is done. We're getting a faster game, a quicker game, a much more competitive game. We're going to see, different aspects through the season. I want to talk about these broadcasts, traditional versus this new media. We noticed that ESPN gave up their rights package for, I think, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday games. Apple picked up some games. NBC picked up some games. You actually had the opportunity to watch the Apple TV Plus game with the Mets and the Nationals on Friday night. I did too. I wanted to know your thoughts on the game.
Besides the Mets winning the game, which was the best part about the broadcast, I really think, Ted, I think, let's be honest, I think Apple is setting a standard for what you call new media, how broadcasts for new media should look like. And the reason why I said to set the standard is because Amazon really hasn't put themselves fully into the NFL until this upcoming season.
Right.
We haven't had it on the NBA side yet.
Not yet, but it's coming.
NHL is really kind of ESPN Plus, which is something similar to what the ESPN broadcast is. If not, it's basically the local feeds tapped on the ESPN network.
Right.
So I think Apple did an outstanding job. I'll be honest with you, the commentators in both the Mets game and also the Astros and Angels game that night on Friday night, the women broadcasters did a phenomenal job.
Right.
They brought a energy to the game that, we had on my show, Sports Site 7x7, my co-host and I, Justin Lee, were talking about this yesterday. They brought a different energy to the game because, Ted, we're so used to, all right, the count's 3-1, the pitch. Like, we were used to that. Right. But they were providing an energy, Ted, that I think for a first-time broadcast, I think was refreshing.
Yes.
Now the real question is, how do you build upon that? And I do like the little stats in the right-hand corner, the analytical stats.
Okay.
You're learning. So my wife and I were coming home. We're on Friday. We're watching a little bit of the Angels game, and she saw the probability of a guy getting on base at 18%. She goes, "Oh, he sucks. He doesn't get on the base but 18% of the time." Right. But the fact of the stat not only is in the corner, but the fact that it updates as the pitch count changes. Right. It updates if the pitcher goes right or if you get a pitching change. if you have a runner on first or a runner on second. And it's not the same stat. It's different quantitative stats just to prove a point about a hitter every single time, which I think is a revolutionary way of showing baseball. We saw with one of the home runs they had tracked from the time that went off the bat. You see it. It's kind of like watching AWS and
AWS.
Amazon.
Yes.
So it was kind of the same thing of the bat speed, the distance, all that stuff that you get to see the statistic wise. So if you're a stat guy like myself or an analytics person like myself, it's a great way to watch baseball.
Yeah.
So I think they're doing great, and I wonder, and I'm really excited to see what Peacock is going to do on May 8th with their version of the broadcast, and what they're going to bring different.
So you had Friday Night Baseball. I think visually stunning. The picture, definitely 4K feed. I'm not sure if you were watching using the hardware or you were using
I was on the app.
the mobile app. Beautiful feed. Feed. Like I said, non-traditional broadcast. And, at first I was thinking, I said, do they go the route of hiring, a play-by-play person? Do they do that? Or do they continue with this to give you a different aspect of the game?
I like the fact of it's not, them going out and grabbing a new, grabbing a retread announcer.
Okay.
I'm okay with them not going retread. Amazon had to, because, can we put regular people covering the NFL? I'm not sure. Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit, I'm all for it.
Right.
Baseball is a sport where, Ted, if you don't really traditionally watch the game, you're not really familiar with the announcers of baseball. Outside of Joe Buck, most people can't name very many announcers in Major League Baseball.
Right.
So with this, you can take more of a risk. And, you're going to have different teams because you're having double headers every Friday night. So you can mix and match, and then you can figure out what the rotations are.
Well, I mean, we definitely know streaming is the future.
It is.
The fact that these, tech firms or tech companies are coming in and grabbing a piece of the pie, just lets you know. Like, so right now, as I see it, it's like these tech companies are just dipping their feet in the water.
Mm-hmm.
They're waiting, because I think the big catch, and I want to stay with baseball, but I want to just mention to you, get a quick comment from you. The big catch is when the NBA rights are up in 2024. I think we're going to be shocked.
I think 2024 will be the end of NBA League Pass.
Okay.
I think to a certain extent. I think you've seen the relationship with the NBA and Amazon with the WNBA side of things.
Mm-hmm.
I think the WNBA is getting their version of a facelift this season. I'm hoping that it is. They need to upgrade the package and upgrade the effects, kind of the same way Apple are doing now. I think Amazon or Apple jumps into the NBA. And Ted, to be honest with you, I think Meta jumps into this because they have the VR.
Yes.
I think VR is coming next in the NBA. I think the NBA is much more for streaming than any other league, more than the NFL, more than Major League Baseball. And here's the reason why. Major League Baseball, NFL will always be whatever it is. NFL can be on two networks and everybody's going to watch on Sundays.
Right. It can be littered with traditional legacy networks and streaming networks, and the numbers are going to be through the roof.
Yeah, you don't need streaming networks for the NFL. NFL sells itself. You can have CBS and Fox every Sunday without streaming, and you'd be A-okay. Okay. The reason why that Amazon got the Thursday night package is because, let's be honest, Fox and NBC over the years, they kept getting the terrible games on Thursday nights.
Right.
So, of course, they were dumping the package. No one wants to watch. I mean, before last season, No one wanted to watch the Bengals and Jaguars on a Thursday night in October.
No.
No. But I bet you this year, because we were talking off air yesterday, Ted, we're looking at potentially, linking up in Baltimore for Broncos and Ravens.
Broncos, Ravens.
Ted, you don't think that's not an attractive Thursday night matchup on Amazon?
Of course it is.
Or Ted, maybe even Tampa, Baltimore down in Tampa.
Totally.
Or maybe even Tampa, Cleveland when Brady goes to see Deshaun Watson.
Oh.
And now with the changing landscape of the NFL, Thursday night games are going to be way better than what they ever were.
Of course.
Baseball is 162 games. It's a long season.
So, hey, I want to stop right here. I want to go back to Peacock. Sunday morning baseball. I love the idea. Starting off with 11:30 a.m. pregame shows, and then it morphing to 12 p.m. Baseball games. The first game is going to be on NBC. Everything else is going to be on Peacock. I love the idea. But with this, I love the tradition. I would love to see Costas out there. I would love to see Tirico call a game. I would love to see, our baseball savants jump in here, maybe not so much week to week, but if they had different well-known voices come through to call a game. Now, and I don't know if this means they're going to, call the game, on site or on screen or whatever the case is, but I like to see those pairings.
Well, I think with Peacock, it's different because Peacock is attached to NBC.
Right.
So I expect, NBC to put their foot or their hands into this. Now, if you're going to do it, like you said, you're going to have to do it right. Give me Costas, give me Tirico, but I need the old version of the cut scenes in the video, the intro and everything else.
You saw that on Twitter.
I saw that on Twitter, and I'll be honest
on Twitter.
I was extremely excited about it.
Yes.
When I saw Acuna hit that bat flip, and I'm like, this is what I need. I got that adrenaline rush. It's like watching, if somebody did a new version of the NBA on NBC, and you put today's players among the John Tesh theme song with the NBC graphics.
Agreed.
You're sold. So I think with traditional over the streaming traditional services, like I say ESPN, the Peacocks, I would expect much more of a network style broadcast. With Apple and Amazon, I feel like it should be much more of a creative, what Apple did the other night. That was much more innovative because guess what? They're tech companies. They're not networks. They're tech companies. But what I was saying earlier was about baseball is too long of a season. So the NBA is that right sweet spot because also the NBA has marketable players. I mean, Ted, they have marketable players everywhere. They do an outstanding job in marketing their athletes. Football, like I said, football is what it is. Baseball doesn't do a good job of marketing.
Not at all.
The NHL, listen, NHL is a sport now. If you're a diehard fan, you know the players.
Right.
Ted, the days of us watching when ESPN left, Ted, there was NHL in the 90s. There's nothing like NHL in the 90s. The 90s and 2000s NHL was the best NHL possible because ESPN was behind it.
Right.
Now that most of the games are on Plus instead of the major network.
It drives me insane.
It does. Now, I want to see how they do the playoffs in a couple of weeks. We'll see how it turns out. But the NBA is the sweet spot. Okay, Ted. It doesn't even have to be a full package because TNT has Thursdays. ESPN has Thursdays. TNT has Thursdays, and you're good on that. And then they get Mondays after Martin Luther King Day to take over Mondays as well too after the NFL season. So we have ESPN Wednesday and Fridays.
Wednesdays and Fridays.
And then you have ABC Saturday Night Basketball, which I think if they don't change that format by next season, I'm going to stop watching it.
Really?
ABC Saturday Night Basketball is annoying to me. And here's the reason why. It's the same 7 teams all season.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. I watched Steph Curry on a Saturday night 9 times this year. I'm over it.
Yeah,
Like,
but that's still I gotta interject because when NBA on CBS and NBA on NBC, you used to see the same 7 teams at 1 o'clock and at 3:30.
no, Ted, because there were also some Sundays on NBC where it went full regional coverage.
Okay,
So you remember, Ted, they had 3 or 4 games at 3:30, and it was based upon what part of the country you're in.
okay,
But that's just showing our age here, Ted, because that was before streaming even happened. So you had the only way you was going to know what was going on in that game in San Antonio was watching the highlights at halftime.
right. That's true.
So, but what I say with that is that the NBA is a sweet spot. So we've seen their version of a red zone, with their attempt to do it. Um, and I think they'll get better with the next season. But hey, Ted, why not go to, like you mentioned, a Sunday afternoon broadcast on a streaming service?
Right.
Ted, NBA on Apple on Sundays at 3:30.
Come
And
on.
then you get 2 games on Apple services.
Right.
Either be a double header or you can go 2 games at multiple times because Ted, it really is not about ratings. But you let Apple use the analytics part of basketball
Mm-hmm.
to present basketball in a different way.
To introduce it to people because people hear the term analytic and they go, oh, well, I don't know. That's dealing with the data and everything else like that. There's that great big mystery, but it really isn't that much of a mystery.
I think, Ted, it's like with analytics. Analytics is good and analytics is bad for basketball. Analytics is bad for basketball when you realize that when you think that's the only way you can watch basketball or grade the players or talk about the players is through numbers. Where value is done through numbers, that's the only thing you can do it. Analytics is like watching the game as well too. You should be able to you should be able to watch the game and the numbers and analytics to support what you watch in the game. Watching the game shouldn't take place over numbers, and numbers shouldn't take over place watching the game. There should be the happy medium. I love analytics. I hate that analytics. The only thing I don't like about analytics is the fact of some people use analytics as the only thing that dictates how good basketball is. Just like people who only watch basketball and don't look at numbers, it kind of ruins the game. So it's kind of that happy medium. But for me, I love analytics because analytics can tell a story about things that you don't see on the court. It makes players much more valuable than what makes Ted the role players. The players that we
Right.
don't talk about actually have value.
Right.
The players that we don't get to see on SportsCenter.
I got 2 questions and then we can wrap up.
Okay.
First question. What happens with all these streaming companies jumping in? And we've been introduced to it with Premier League, La Liga, MLS. So mainly with soccer. We're getting introduced to it also with NHL packages. Dude, these games are all over the place. So if I'm a legacy fan and I open my eyes and I get ready because I said, hey, I want to watch the Yankees and I want to watch them on WPIX in New York, and those games are no longer available, and I'm being told that I need to have an Amazon Prime subscription, or it's to a point where I'm flipping channels. The reason why the Thursday package didn't work was I go back to maybe 3 to 4 years ago when the package itself, which has always been a horrible package because not being able to flex it, you didn't know if it was on Fox, CBS, NBC. It's just, I guess the question I have for you is the common fan, will they get lost and caught up in the shuffle of these sports leagues being so greedy and sharing their packages, sharing various packages with these networks because sports sells. um will the everyday fan just fizzle out?
No, because I think with everything in technology, it forces you to have to upgrade nowadays. I mean, Ted, gone are the days, you remember the olden days, Ted, where you can use a rotary phone for everything.
Yeah.
And now, in order to talk to people, you have to have a smartphone in most cases. You know, even our legacy networks have turned to a digital format. ESPN is basically sending people to Plus. Pretty soon, I think Turner and HBO Max are going to be buddy buddy very, very, very
Oh yeah, very
sooner
soon.
rather than later. I mean, they already because HBO Max already has what the United States soccer team, men's and women's, going forward. The
Mm-hmm.
NHL is going to be going there pretty soon. And I'll
Yep.
be honest, if the NBA really gets serious, they can go to HBO Max.
Yeah.
You know, I think the common fan nowadays, Ted, what we're really gone is our legacy networks, Ted, the WPIXs, the local networks, they lost their games to the regional sports networks.
Yes.
So what needs to be done is the regional networks need to be able to reach homes. One of the main issues, Ted, to be honest with you, with these regional sports networks, you look at Bally's.
Mm-hmm.
Bally's had an issue with almost every single team that they've been dealing with all season. I can give you an example. Today in Charlotte, the Hornets game for the first quarter and a half was not available in the Charlotte area. So all the Hornets fans who were watching it, who actually are territorial restricted to Hornets, were given the Hawks game
Wow.
during the middle of the Hornets game because there was a complete technical issue with Bally's, and they forced everybody to go to the Bally's app to watch the game.
That's grimy.
Ted, the days of us, like I'm in Charlotte watching games on WJZY, those days are over.
Right.
The local networks, the local channels, the homegrown games, Ted, WPIX, WWOR in New York, those days are over.
Yeah.
Everybody's giving their games to these regional sports networks. Ted's not the streaming, it's the regional sports networks being greedy and trying to sell
Right.
these networks at an absorbently a high number.
But how it impacts the fan, like the fan
It
doesn't
forces
see the
it forces you to pay cable
dollars and
prices.
cents. Oh, say it again.
It forces you to pay cable.
Yes. It
And
forces you to say, can I have my cable bundle back?
well, Ted, you can have your cable bundle back, but you're gonna take these channels at this cost, and your bill is $300.
Yeah.
Your cable bill is the equivalent of a car payment.
Yeah. You're not lying, because when I was a DirecTV subscriber, we were at the point where the cable bill was two and change a month.
It's crazy because it's now DirecTV is cheaper than cable. We're at the point now, Ted, where DirecTV and Dish Network are cheaper than your local cable package.
All
I
right.
can ask my wife if we were going to get Cox here in Virginia, how much would Cox or Verizon run us a month just for cable? And I bet you we could find a DirecTV package for $39.99 a month that would give us the sports channels that is almost $100 cheaper than what basic cable is.
All right. I want to go NFL centric with you, but it's still on the topic of streaming. What's your thoughts on potentially NFL Plus? NFL coming out with its own streaming service.
I mean, don't they? We got Sunday Ticket. At least, hopefully, if they come up with NFL Plus, can we get the games on replay without having to use Game Pass?
Well, I think the Game Pass is going to get renamed somehow and sucked into this NFL Plus.
Then you know what? If that's the case, I'm all for it. Here's the reason why. One of the hardest things to do with the NFL is that because all these games are played at one time, all these games are played, you either have a 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock window. And if you don't have DirecTV or if you don't have, Ted, Red Zone, which is still the best thing in sports.
The best thing ever.
Best thing ever. If you don't have Red Zone, even if you're watching Red Zone, you still want to watch your Falcons, your Jets, or your Ravens play. Give me Game Pass and let me have access to the game 3 hours after it's over.
Mm-hmm.
Because, Ted, there's so many people who work on Sundays that
Right.
miss their team's game, who
Right.
don't, Ted, have a DVR at home.
Mm.
Let me be able to watch my game give the networks 3 hours. That way they can chop it up without commercials. If a 1 o'clock game is on, I can be able to access the game right before the Sunday night kickoff. That way I can watch something just in case the Sunday night game is terrible.
Okay. Would you say thumbs up or thumbs down, potentially NFL films going to Netflix?
Thumbs up.
Okay.
Reason being is now because on Netflix, we can really get the uncensored version of everything that goes on.
Yes.
Give me NFL films as production on top of Netflix's ability to be open. I'm all for it. I love beyond the documentary scenes, like your Hard Knocks. I would love to see what NFL films can do with training camp or whatever they decide to do when they don't have barriers because it's network television. I'm for it.
What's your thoughts? Where would you want to see Red Zone, NFL Network? Would you want to see them wind up with Apple, or would you want to see them wind up with Amazon?
Listen, if you want the money, you go Amazon. Because let's be honest, you're still fighting the Apple Android battle. Okay? You're still fighting that battle. But with Amazon, the common person, that every person in America has Amazon. It is what it is. But the NFL knows they can make more money with Amazon because everybody and their mother has Amazon. If a husband's wife has Amazon and they go to the wife and say, "Hey, I can pay an additional X amount of dollars a month on top of our membership to get NFL Sunday ticket," I don't think there's a fight in the household because we already have Amazon. And Ted, to be honest with you, Amazon can raise they're about $3 a month, Ted. If you want an NFL Sunday ticket and change your bill by $3, do you know how many people is going to subscribe to NFL Sunday ticket for the additional $3?
Yeah.
And Ted, since Amazon's got all this money anyway, all these subscribers, they'll make all their money back instantaneously.
With them going from $119 a year, I remember when it was $99 a year. With them going from $119 a year to $139, they just created $4 billion in revenue.
Ted, if you go from $139 to $149 and just get the Sunday ticket option, the additional $10 a year, Ted, that's what, 80 cents a month?
Yeah, and that's another $2 billion in revenue
per year.
Per year.
And then Ted, how much did Amazon pay for the package?
Well, it's still out there. There's still a question in regards to
the number.
If they're going to get the Sunday ticket. But are you talking
Ted,
about
their current number now is what, $2 billion?
Yeah, the current number is $2 billion.
So Ted, if they decide to do it for 1 year, that's the $2 billion for your NFL package there.
Right.
If you give the NFL additional $4 billion for Sunday ticket, within 3 years you made all your money back.
Yes.
And you might get even more.
Mm-hmm.
Because Ted, you say they went $20 a year and made $4 billion in 1 year.
Right.
You raise it $2. You raise another $20, Ted. You made all your money back within 18 months.
Right. The big question would be how many people. I mean, and you're talking about 200 million subscribers.
Yep.
So do the math. The math is right there. Will they get every of the 200 million?
No.
What's the number of football fans that will agree to another increase? We don't know.
I'd say 65%.
Okay.
I think 65% of football of Amazon subscribers would pay the $20 a month to do it. The $20 a year to do it. I mean, Ted, it's they say if me and you talk about all the time about the yearly and the monthly.
Yes.
So Ted, you're talking $20 a month, but if you raise your bill $2 a month for the pay monthly, imagine how that's going to turn out.
Right.
Because like you always said, we always talk about giving people options. Well, if you pay for the whole year, you add Sunday ticket. If you go month to month, you can cancel at the end of the NFL season.
Right.
So Ted, what do? You get, like you say, you give people a la carte options and let them buy what they want. You're going to get your money regardless.
You will. You definitely will. What was the other thing that I was going to mention to you? We talked a little bit about everything. I don't know. I kind of like Apple getting, Apple pushing out Yahoo, because those deals, the Yahoo, the Verizon deal for the mobile is expired. So I would like to see if that went to Apple TV, because I think. Oh, so let me put together my thoughts here. They've squeezed all they can out of the legacy networks.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're dipping your toes into the Amazon and the Apple and potentially Netflix. But the mobile piece of it, I would like for mobile to go to an Apple or or even a Google.
I mean, like I said, it's just really. I would love to see what Google can do if they get their hands on something.
Right.
I mean, Ted, Google's the only major tech company that hasn't jumped in the sporting realm yet.
Right.
They're on the data side, they're the analytics side, the data side. But Ted, we haven't seen what they can do. And Google, like you mentioned, prints money.
But when you have a billion of these devices out there, that's how you get. That's how you make your favorite sports. The big question is always about how do they get younger. They get younger if you bring it to the mobile phone.
Hey, if Kathy Englebert's listening for the WNBA, hey, you're trying to get more people in your hands, go to Google.
Go to Google.
See if Google will help. Google. I mean, Ted, maybe Google might come in and take the NFL package.
Who knows? Who knows? I mean, but I think the crown jewel is the NBA package.
I think the NBA, yeah, because I think the NFL's kind of sprung out. But I wonder, with all the money ESPN's investing with Vogue and everybody else, you mentioned Turner's not going anywhere. Turner's going to be the cable home of the NBA until Turner goes away.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder, is a second major Big Four network going to jump into the NBA? I wonder, will Fox get them? Maybe Fox might dip into the NBA. They've never done it.
They've never done it.
That's the only sport that they have not touched.
They've never done it.
Will NBC go old school and bring back Peter Vesey and Marv Albert,
Julius Erving,
and are we bringing
Jason
back
Williams? I don't know.
It's interesting if Fox decides to jump in this.
I'm sure they would do a good job.
I mean, that means we're getting Gus Johnson on basketball.
Listen, it's there. It's going to be there, and people are going to talk about it for the next 2 years.
But Ted, maybe what? Maybe Google jumps in on the NBA because Google already has a relationship with the NBA already. Maybe that's Google. Maybe Google might make their NBA. Maybe they're leaping to sports by the NBA.
Okay.
Because maybe Amazon. Okay, Amazon's got the NFL on lock. Apple's taking care of baseball. ESPN is the streaming side for the NHL. Why? You mentioned all those Google devices. Every phone's got Google, whether it be Apple or Android in some capacity.
Right.
Ted, get a Google team and then get Google Analytics. And all you need is the right set of announcers. You don't even need big time announcers.
It's true. It's true. Hey, last comment. Even though he didn't do it, Tiger Woods was out there. I mean, from a guy who was out there practicing a week ago and 35,000 people were surrounding, waiting for this person. Have we seen the best of Tiger Woods?
I think he's got one more left in him. I think this weekend showed him that he can go 72 holes with the body the way it is.
Right.
And the more he plays on, he's already committed to the British Open. He is considering playing the PGA Championship. Ted, he might have. I think he has one more major left in him.
Wow.
I think if he can prove to himself that if he can prove that he can win one more major after all of this, he goes out. He goes out and then he takes care of Charlie.
Gotcha.
I mean, Ted, I think Tiger just needs that one more roar at 18 on a Sunday wearing red with him up a stroke or a chance to take the lead one more time. We need to see Sunday Tiger one more time at his best.
Okay. Tell us where we can find you, Danny. Tell us. I know where to find you on Saturday mornings, 9 a.m. Eastern time. But let our
Check out
listeners and viewers know.
check out the show Sports Insight 757 with Jay Lee. Myself and Justin Lee are on the show. 96.5 FM or 8:50 a.m. in the Norfolk, Virginia area. If you cannot catch the show, you can go to Sports Radio 96.5 online and check out the stream there, or you can even download the Sports Radio 96.5 app in the Apple iTunes Store or the Google Play Store. Check out my tweets throughout the NBA season, NBA playoffs, and Danny #3 Thompson on Twitter. You probably see it on the stream down there. And yeah, I take care of social media for the radio station, and I always pop in from time to time here on Late Night Parents just to get a chance to chop it up with Ted on the big screen.
All right. This is Ted Hicks. You know the site, latenightparents.com. Thank you for once again coming through. And Danny, thank you so much. And that's about it.
Have a great night.